that the veterans they love got help and recovered. Go to maketheconnection.net and turn hope into action.
Days, months,
So we are on track to do that. Implementation is set for January 1 of 2024 with it. One thing I found when I looked at both departments, there was a duplication of services, unfortunately, resulting from HIPAA regulations. So we'd have one client being serviced by DSS, for example, and then if they were served by DCP, the two departments couldn't communicate with each other. And they did not know that each was performing the same service for that individual with it. So now under the consolidation, we'll be able to regulate that better and get around some of the HIPAA regulations. So now we'll always be able to know what that person's there. Plus, I think it makes it much more efficient with regard to some of the positions we're recreating or reorganizing with in the department itself. So we're expecting that this will be a big turnaround. There's been a positive attitude about this change for it. Jerry Vandenhoeven, who is the head of DCP, is going to be my selection as the new Human Services Director. She has the credentials for both DSS and DCP also. So that's one of the things we've been working on. I will tell you right now, one of the biggest areas we're trying to figure out is our inpatient acute facility, the mental illness facility we have in Fond du Lac. That is a problem we're dealing with staffing issues for it. Unfortunately, twice now I've come closer. I've had to close the doors because we did not have sufficient staff at night. We were running about 24 patients for 2 employees that were there, and you cannot do that. So we switched it around. I put a ratio in effect of 5-to-1. I capped it at 15 patients itself right now. And basically we're trying to maintain control so that patients aren't harmed and we don't have employees that are harmed at the same time for it. So now we're going through a restructuring period also with regard to that department, trying to figure out how do we get more nurses, how do we get more CNAs, LPNs, because the medical field itself is changing so much, we can't keep them. And the problem we run into is wages. We cannot pay them what the private sector pays them, unfortunately. And that's the reality of it. And that's why you see different agencies, why counties will not build an inpatient facility. There's only ourselves and Trumbull County that have inpatient. And then you've got Mendota and Madison, and then you've got Winnebago there. And Milwaukee County had a facility. They have now turned that over to a private agency instead. So this is kind of the reality of it as far as what we're trying to do as mental illness cases increase. We're trying to deal with the staffing issue, and that's been an ongoing issue. But part of that has to do with wages. So one of the things I've done now, which hasn't been done in 23 years, I've now directed a wage study to be completed for Fond du Lac County. We hired a company by the name of Bolton out of Ohio. They are now in the process of starting that. We've sent over our job descriptions. We expect that report will come back to us by August because I need to now incorporate wage adjustments into the 2024 budget for it. We don't know what that's going to come out to be yet with it, but there's no question it has to be done because we can no longer compete because we don't know what the proper pay is for everyone with it. But it's not only salary, it's benefit. When I was here talking to the league, I mentioned one thing I find interesting. This younger generation, it's not a matter of the pay anymore, it's a matter of the benefits. And what they're looking for are more flex hours, stay-at-home hours, things they can work out of their house instead of being in an office setting. And so now we need to rechange or retool all of what we're doing to give us that opportunity to accommodate them in their schedules with it, to make that, I guess, the environment more friendly for what they're looking to do. At the same time, to make sure that I'm not affecting the services in a negative way for it, because I can't do that with it. So it's a balance act, to do it. We have to be competitive to get the right people, but it's going to take us to retool how we do our human services department, also for that. So a lot of things we're working on through the Sheriff's Department, different programs we're running through. I know Adam and I are going to be meeting about a housing issue that the city of Ripon is looking at. I'm working on something with Campbell Sport right now, also on a housing project out there with it. I've talked to Joe Moore, met with him with the city of Fond du Lac in regard to housing projects they have going on with it. But besides that, we're talking about the daycare issue already, trying to figure out ways to make changes or improvements in the county for child care needs that are out there. But as I tell people constantly, the government can't do it alone. It has to be a partnership with the businesses for it. And that's what I've been directing the businesses on as I talk to them, is ideas that we have to figure this out together. If it's going to be something the government's always going to be doing, it's not sustainable because we do not know every year what our budget is going to look like. I tell them it's a $170 million budget, and I had to cut $4 million out last year just to make it ends meet on it for it. So there's things they have to do to partner with us, and I think the partnership is there because they realize it too. They understand that to attract people, you've got to do something to help offset these personal expenses they have for it. Daycare is just an outrageous expense, for it. And we've got to do something to figure it out, but the government just can't subsidize that alone because that's not the answer. So we're working on that. Other projects we're working on, just so you know, you'll probably start hearing more about our UW campus. As you've already heard, Richmond Center got shut down by the state as a higher education place, now more of an administrative office. Our fear is they're going to start shutting more of those campuses down now. I've taken a different approach. Instead of worrying about that issue, I've been working with Chancellor Levitt directly to figure out ways to repurpose buildings now. My goal has been to shrink their footprint on campus to reduce their operational expenses with it. By doing that, my hope is that Madison will put us aside and deal with other campuses that aren't taking that proactive approach for it. So there's different projects we're working on right now at the campus with the Chancellor that you might hear about in coming months or so, if we can get some certain state approvals with it. But I think there's some exciting stuff that'll be coming to the campus though. But we do have a plan, a backup plan, if they ever shut us down itself. And I've told people that I have departments we own different buildings outside the county offices that I would probably start moving over to the campus then and make that part of the county government itself for it. I'm not in the mood to buy another building. That's what I don't want to do with it. So different things, but it takes money. I've been talking to the legislature, different members. I had a meeting with the governor at one point to talk about shared revenue itself. We all know municipalities, the county, everybody, we need more money. The reality is that we can't keep paying for everything as operational expenses go up with it, especially law enforcement. It's a big expense that we have, but it's something we need to take care of and make sure we're doing is to support our law enforcement agencies and make sure we got the money to always fund them because they're in a battle themselves right now, and this is the time we need to be backing them, with it. So these are things we're doing on the county level itself. It's been a very busy, close to a year already. Staff-wise, I kept all of my department heads. By statute, a county executive can replace a department head at any point. I kept everyone because fortunately, as vice chair and county chair, I've already worked with all of them. And I had confidence in all of them with it. And Alan did, as long as Alan did, I did. And so we've had a great opportunity to do that. I think the transition then was much easier because of the fact that they already knew me and knew how to work with me on that since I worked with them directly from the county board. But so it's a great time with them right now. A lot of excitement going on at the county building. Different things have been going on. Last thing I mentioned is social media. I told them too. One thing I did is I felt very strongly Fond du Lac County was not in the current state of social media. We weren't letting people know what was going on as a county. And that if I'm going to attract younger people to the county, I have to make sure they know we have life here. There's things going on. So I created a position called a recruitment and promotional strategist. And Stephanie Dahlke is that person who leads that department. She has a high energy on that, and she lives over by Rosendale area. But she created now a Facebook account for the county exec, a YouTube channel, Twitter, all that stuff. I'm too old. I can't keep up with it. But she has a media room now down in the basement. So they're going to be doing videos, also promotional videos about the county, department head interviews. May is the month of foster care month. And for people who know me, I have a deep passion for foster care. That's one of my main passions. I've been refocusing our DSS department on to promote foster care itself. And so that is foster care month in May. And so we're going to be pushing out videos, different interview with foster care parents just to get that word out because there is a big need. We have too many kids in foster care and there's just not enough homes for it. So now I've been partnering with private agencies like Pillar and Vine and that over in Brandon, St. A's down towards Milwaukee, just trying to get together with different events and different things so they can interact and then start trying to get access to more homes through those agencies with it. So it's been a wonderful time working with them too. So I'm going to throw a lot at you in a short time here, but does anybody have any questions for me they'd like to ask? No? Well, that was simple.
Well, I'll say I'm grateful to hear this update. Thank you.
Sure.
I really appreciate that because I think that as a city we become stronger when we have connection with the county, and the county is stronger when you have connection with the city, vice versa.
Sure.
A quick thing about the inpatient facility. If you were to have, you said, thank goodness you haven't had to close it down, but it was close. What would happen to those inpatients if you had to close it down?
Well, the majority of our patients out of the NUF actually come from out of county, not in county. 2022, we had the numbers, 55% of our patients were out of county with it. And so what would happen is, right away I would stop taking out-of-county patients to reduce the staff need itself, see if that would help. And then I would go through, if I had to close it down for some reason, we'd have to move our patients out to Oshkosh or down to Madison, possibly Milwaukee then with it. My hope is if we were going to shut down, it'd be a short term to reorganize, but the staffing issue is our biggest problem. I mean, the reality is, hospitals, everybody know, nowadays a nurse, an LPN, a CNA, they can just pick up a phone and make a phone call and have a job in minutes elsewhere. And they know that. And because they know it, they don't have to worry about it. So if they decide, I don't want to work this shift, they call in, I'm not working. And that puts us in a predicament. Well, you can't do business that way, not in something like this. I can't have people going through not knowing if I've got enough staff there for it, because it required me to move people out right away with it. And if that's the way we're going to operate, then I'd rather shut it down and reorganize, with it. So it's an unfortunate reality of the job market, but it's something we have to figure out.
And then thank you for that. And as a follow-up, you talked a lot about consolidation, and I appreciate being fiscally conservative. That's important. And I wonder, is there also places that then you've been able to save money to invest in? Or what areas are you looking at investing? Or if you had, let's say we had more shared revenue in the future, where do you see as the critical places that you would like to invest in?
Well, I think there's more key more individuals in key positions we need to create that are shorthanded right now. IT department, for example, is one of our biggest areas. People don't know that, but for the county website, there are at least 2 to 3 attacks on our site every week. And we go through and we have individuals who just monitor that, and that's all they do. But the reality is, as IT world changes and becomes more advanced, we need more people to be in that field. And we just can't compete. I mean, those people are being taken up by large companies because we're all having the same problem. But they demand 6-figure salaries. That's the problem we run into. So we have to try and create more of those positions to handle those situations. But it's probably one of the biggest areas we need. But savings-wise, different operations. Rolling Meadows, good example. And that's for Rolling Meadows Golf Course. I had to deal with that issue. People don't realize that golf course was losing anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000 a year with it. And a lot of people don't even realize that. One of the first things I did when I came into office was I had a meeting with the UW Extension Parks Committee, who oversees the fairground, and said, we need to make a choice. Change it or sell it. Be done. I can't have this in our budget every year, not knowing how much money we're going to lose on this. It's an enterprise fund. They weren't making the money, so people don't realize every year when they run into a deficit, sales tax money has to be applied to cover the debt. We've accumulated $2.6 million of debt from the county paying for this. You can't do that. An enterprise fund by its nature is self-sufficient, and it wasn't doing that. So we had an ad hoc committee formed. We went through, started looking at, do we keep it, do we change it? Luckily, they came back and they said, we're going to go through, change the model. We're going to renovate the clubhouse to make it a year-round facility now for events that are going out there itself. We're going to look at the concession operations to maybe have the county start running it. Washington County has one, and they net about $150,000 profit every year because they operate themselves. Or ours is under a current lease with somebody, and we don't make that much with them. So it's things like that, but then I changed the accounting practices. I used to be a mortgage lender, and the idea is that you go on through, and I started looking at their books. And as I looked at their books, I started realizing the way they were doing purchasing was deficit spending. So I changed the policy for them, changed that practice itself. So the number we had for 2022 is, for the first time, they now turned a $40,000 profit and no sales tax had to be applied for that year. And that's the way it has to be in order to be an enterprise fund. Either you do it that way or you call it quits and sell it. And so we're on the right track, and I wanted to keep it, but I couldn't financially go through and proceed this way and be irresponsible with taxpayer dollars by allowing it to keep losing money constantly. It's just not the way you do it. And so luckily they're on the right track. I expect that they could be close to $100,000 this year at the rate they're going right now with it. But it's going to take some work, to get it done. We've just got to keep on track. So,
Thank you. And the last question for me is, I think it's important for people to know how they can engage in local government. And just like with City Council, maybe you could remind us, for folks listening, that there is also public comment if they were to show up, that we have our local representatives, 2 of them that represent Ripon, that you can contact them, email them, we can call you,
yes,
for example, right?
Yeah,
I guess,
absolutely.
is there anything more you want to say?
No, it's just, I thank all of you guys for getting involved, and that being on the town board myself, and that when I got involved in county supervisor, We don't get enough people running for office, especially the younger generation. They can care less what's going on. They don't pay attention half the time, with regard to it. And trying to get them to run for different offices is just a headache, for it, because they don't want to listen. They don't want to get involved with it. It's that they've just shut an ear to it all. So I try and tell people, encourage people to get involved. We've got in the county, for example, not only the elected positions, we have committees that are non-standing. Any citizen can go through and submit a resume to be on a non-standing committee to get involved in county government itself. And I encourage people to do that, with it. Even municipalities, City of Fond du Lac, City of Ripon, they have committees like that. And I keep trying to get them involved. You don't want to be run for office, that's fine. But you can still get involved with it. And that's what we need to keep having, is get these people involved. Fresh voices, fresh views are always a good thing with it, so. Sure. I took a lot of your time. I apologize, but thank you guys. Is there anything else? No? Thank you. I appreciate it. I look forward to our meeting. And just like I said, if there's anything you guys need, I'm always there. Give me a call. Let me know. Something you want to talk about. I'll be glad to. For it. And again, I want to thank Ellen for setting up that League of Women Voters. That was a very nice informational time for that. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
All right. Moving on to a special exemption or modification of the Ripon Business Park restrictive covenants. This is a item being brought forth from the Plan Commission for a flash trucking project that'll be constructed out there. They're looking to get an exemption from the masonry requirements facing the streets. And the Plan Commission suggests approving this due to the nature of the project and the use of the property, and also the fact that it's kind of tucked in behind a building where very few people will ever see it.
Are you looking for a motion, Mayor?
I'm looking for a motion to approve the exemption.
I make a motion to approve the special exemption or modification of the Ripon Business Park restrictive covenants.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Doug, seconded by John. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Not that I'm against this. One of the reasons we set up the covenants the way it was is that we wanted to keep things as uniform as possible looking out there, so that we didn't get some cheaply looking constructed facilities. But with that, like I said, the location of this is a little different. It's not like it's facing the main road. So I think we can make that exception.
And part of the discussion at the Plan Commission, Bill Hoke, who was part of the group that established the covenants, said the intention of that park was originally more of a business park than industrial, and it's turned more into an industrial use. Whereas there's really only one parcel left that really might fit the business model, whereas this is not that parcel.
And like I say, it's not like it's sitting right on Highway 44 or right on Douglas Street, where that was the main purpose of the covenants being set up the way it was.
Exactly. And this property is tucked in behind the Alliance Laundry warehouse facility.
Yep.
And the covenants had the specific language that there would be the possibility of special exception on case-by-case basis. And so this is a one-off, if you will, that this is the time that it made sense to bring it through Plan Commission to the County Council.
I'm glad you shared that, and because, I mean, we are setting a precedent, but also we're saying that it's okay to go back and hold true in the future to what we want, correct?
Absolutely. We're not throwing out the covenants. We're looking at particular circumstances, case by case.
And like I said, covenants were largely created to protect the look of the Highway 44 corridor, and this is certainly shielded from that.
And just to take a step back too, so the city has a development agreement in place with Flash Trucking. So obviously this modification request sort of makes public their intention to buy that property and put a transloading facility and develop that site. Overall, this site in the previous covenants was more business or office park in nature with many different parcels. We are selling the entire parcel to Flash as they develop this out, and you can kind of see in your packet, I hope, a kind of a layout of what's going on there, including rail spurs and a first 10,000 square foot building. The overall project cost, as noted at the Plan Commission meeting, and one of the reasons why an exemption would be granted is it's a $2.5 million expenditure just for a 10,000 square foot building and and the rail. You also see on your plans the potential for an additional $40,000 that would take this project north of $5 million or so, as stated at the Plan Commission meeting. And that requirement to put brick or masonry facade would extend on that addition. So due to the financial impact and overall development of the site, it was unanimously approved by Plan Commission to have the modification.
Ellen, then Dave.
Does this, do these covenants apply to the 23 corridor at all?
No, this is just that one business park.
There's only one lot left that this would apply to that's not developed. And that's right in front of Alliance next to the bus.
Okay.
And then, Alliant Energy is building right across the street, and nothing applies to them because they're not in the original covenants or that development. So it's just, on top of the nature of this project is transloading with cars and cargo and rail. So it's just a different sort of, a different type of development, but certainly we'll use the rail in a very productive way for us.
Dude?
That was the question.
All right. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the special exemption, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? As approved. Our next item is the City of Ripon donations policy. Adam?
Finance Director, Assistant City Administrator Tony and I have been going back and forth on our financial policies. One of the things we wanted to sort of put in place or codify was a more thorough donations policy to help guide not only procedures for accepting donations, but as well as kind of discussing different types of donations that we may receive in the process for accepting them and or bringing them forward to the Common Council. Furthermore, we would be looking at, in the policy establishing sort of the path for the funds to enter and exit and provide information or, documentation back to property or to donors for their property or their donations given. So this is what we've drafted. I don't think we currently have anything on the books that we could find. So this would be the first sort of policy of this nature for the city. So it just sort of sets, like I said, the guidelines for accepting donations and of all sorts. Happy to answer any questions. Or Amanda would. Happy to answer any questions.
Sure.
In the section 5 declined donations, it says the city reserves the right. When you say the city reserves the right, that gives like the department head, if the money is offered up to the department, that they would be able to decline? Or is it something that would come to the council for declining?
What section?
Are you under the memorials? Which section are you under?
Section 5 declined donations.
Oh, okay.
Last page.
It just says the city, and, the city is referring to the city of Ripon. It doesn't go into any further detail as to who's authorizing the decline.
Right, it would come to the city. Previously in the policy, we note that the ones that have to come to common council are 50,000 or more. So it would apply to those that are larger than that. Anything smaller than that is something the city administrator could decline.
Okay.
So it'd go back to the policy in what
Right.
type of donation. Certainly, if we feel conflicted or if a department head feels conflicted, we will run it up the chain, no doubt. But, there are just certain things that we are immediately going to say, that's not in the best interest to take. If somebody has a piece of property that's falling down and is going to cost a bunch of money to environmentally remediate and fix, don't necessarily want to take that one. And then obviously there's other things if somebody, wants to give us a used piece of equipment or a painting that isn't, we could respectfully decline. But at the end of the day, if it becomes at a threshold there or to a level where it's getting uncomfortable, we certainly will bring that forward to the council.
Ultimately, the way I read it is it comes back to the city council. If someone wants to make a donation and the city administration says we're not in that business or do not want that, the donor of that could bring it to this body. The city is the city council, ultimately. So that's important to note.
And we've had parcels in the past that people have wanted to donate, and it's come to the council, and we've rejected just because it was not in the best interest of the city. So.
I like that included in the last section of reporting, that there'll be an annual report. I think that's really important. I assume though, and I guess it probably doesn't need to be in writing, although I assume it would be common practice, that Adam, you would report each time we have a council meeting if there was something relevant rather than waiting till the end of the year per se, about sharing about donations.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, we'll communicate, things as they come forward to the council. Any donation we receive of any value, certainly we want to recognize those people, and if they want to, we will recognize them publicly and then acknowledge to the council as well. Even if they don't want to, we've done it in the past when there's $100,000 anonymous donation for the Senior Activity Center. So there'll be no hesitation on our end to share news of that nature with the council.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve this policy?
I'll make a motion to approve the policy.
Second.
Ellen will second. All right, motion by Terry and second by Ellen. Any further discussion or questions?
I think it's smart we have it.
All right, all those in favor of approving the City of Ripon donations policy, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved.
Thank you.
Our last agenda item is an ordinance to amend section 15.32.050 poles and wire supporting apparatus. Adam?
So this ordinance comes to you from the Public Works Committee. Alan is also here, can speak to some of the challenges that he's encountered in his, just short tenure here about right-of-ways and permitting or allowing things in the right-of-ways. Ultimately, one of the things going back about a year that was brought forward at a Public Works Committee meeting by now Chair Lidicote was areas in town where there were utility poles put in place and there were old utility poles not taken down. So a lack of co-location of utilities and or double utility poles. And the discussion started to be had about how the city could better handle those. This ordinance, in working with Attorney Wirtz was provided as a tool and a step to assist with those types of permitting and that type of work and issues in the right-of-way. So certainly this is a rather kind of unique ordinance. Lud certainly can speak to, if he wants to, kind of the technical aspects of it, but the reality is our goal through permitting and through this ordinance is to encourage utility companies such as Alliant and, Spectrum or whatever, Charter, whatever they are, AT&Ts of the world and Brightspeeds of the world to co-locate. And if they decide to go underground, which there are significant projects being planned in our community to go under, that there is a call to require removal of poles that are either no longer in use or that somehow become sold or the property of another utility that frankly could have co-located in a trench. So obviously with the storm that happened almost 2 years ago now, you still see parts of town with wires hanging. You still see, poles that are declining. You still see double poles. There's a whole lot of stuff going on that doesn't look and feel appropriate. And so this would sort of be one of the tools that staff could use with utility companies to, require co-location or abandonment of poles. So certainly Lud and Allen can talk to some of the challenges beyond what was described.
If you look specifically at C, after utility has by resolution or easement erected poles, that's a key word to understand in terms of the reality that the city of Ripon is facing. A lot of these poles were probably placed with old easements. So those easements gave them a right to be in our right-of-way a long time ago. And so they have the right to maintain the pole. The key would be then, if it's in disrepair, do we have an opportunity under D to force the removal or the repair, or obviously not allowing others to locate on the pole, is the tricky part of this entire project, if you will. Clearly, I'm sure if we polled, sorry about that word, asked citizens would they like to get rid of poles in the city, they'd all raise their hand. The problem is obviously some are absolutely necessary for the transmission of certain power or cable or other services. So step by step, case by case, we're going to try to do our best to require those that are obviously coming off the pole to get everything off the pole if they're going underground, and then use that opportunity to remove the pole. And that's the language that's here. It gives us at least another tool in the toolbox to help with getting rid of poles and unsightly type of structures in the city.
Under D, what does necessary steps mean? What do we have at our, what can we do?
The police power is reserved to the city by the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin, which means when safety issues arise, the city can, in the absence of some other law, take measures to protect its citizens. And so that's the concept there. So necessary steps is open-ended on purpose to determine whether or not we have the legal right to remove the pole if it's obviously threatening the public safety.
Okay.
So it's semantics to some degree, but it gives us that opportunity.
Right.
Doug?
So any monetary fines involved if they don't remove the poles? What are we talking about?
Yeah, again, trying to find someone to go fix the pole, if it's leaning or if it's ready to fall, could go under nuisance, certainly could be a finable offense. This language is intended to say, here's notice that it is endangering the safety, we're doing it. Okay. And we will figure out how we collect later.
And just to give you kind of an example of some of the struggle, for example, there may be a pole in town that is 60, 70 years old that Alliant Energy may have had the original easement for. And instead of co-locating, they may have sold that pole for, you know, $1 to a Lumen or or Brightspeed or whatever, and we don't know that. So then, essentially, what happens is, you know, it would be likely Alan's job to say, well, that pole's in a state of disrepair, it's half broken. Well, who's the responsible party on it? And short of you know, saying, well, it looks like a you know, telephone line, you know, we would have to then go on a search to find whoever owns that pole now, but they wouldn't have the original easement. So the idea now would be with this ordinance and the process that Alan has identified for permitting things in the right of way is that at that point of Alliant removing their facilities from that pole, that the others go with, and that pole that could become a problem is never a problem because it's taken out as part of the project. And we're not chasing down who owns it.
So my follow-up question is, I know there's going to be some significant work by Alliant or their contractor to bury electrical lines around the city. Are we going to be notifying the subcontractors and stuff that, you know, we have this ordinance so they can plan to remove the poles? Because I know where there's one particular pole is probably 70 years old for a power line. How are we going to let them know that they have to take it down?
Alan, can you speak to the permitting process and
Actually,
all of
on
the
the
projects
ground.
that, if you want to come up to the microphone too, since
You're used to it.
Yeah.
The process involves a review of their plans at application. At this point in time, I am communicating policies that I'm used to applying in my previous employ, and then I've been working with Lud and Adam on further modifying the policies and procedures, and also be modifying the permit application. But largely it starts at the front end, that when I receive a set of plans, they're largely inadequate for the purposes that we're discussing tonight. So I'll be shipping back a full set of the policies and advising them to submit plans that demonstrate compliance with the attached policies. And Adam had mentioned Brightspeed. I'm already in discussion with them, and they have put the brakes on their project because they've recognized that what they want to do is they want to introduce fiber optic throughout the entire community, largely because I'm sure we've all recognized that the typical copper wiring that we've all used most of our life is going by the wayside. And so as that will become antiquated, and they will at some point in time in the future, they will cease support and care and maintenance of that. And that's why when they put in fiber optic now, what we want to do is we want to encourage, if not force that to go underground, because the copper will become antiquated and out of service, I'd venture a guess within at least the next decade, if not sooner. I only became aware of that because in my previous employ, I had a lift station that had a phone service for a dialer, and all of a sudden we got notice that the phone company was ceasing to provide service for us in 2 months. And my only option was to go AT&T through copper service. And AT&T told me they did not know how long they would be able to maintain that without then going to fiber, which then meant I had to find a way to update the lift station with a dialer that was then fiber compatible after just updating it 2 years previous. So it's an evolving situation that this country's in right now, and frankly, I'm not aware of any communities that is going as aggressive as what Ripon is proposing right now. So,
In your opinion, is that aggressiveness a good thing?
You need to, otherwise, one of the projects that landed on my desk was in another neighborhood. They wanted to bury their overhead lines. They're going to go with fiber, and they're going to propose a green pedestal. Well, I assume they're going to be green, about 30 inches high at every other property line. I became aware of that also in my previous employ due to other communities telling me that when a new communication company came to town that that's what their game plan was. So working with our engineers there, we crafted a game plan that everything would go underground. So rather than seeing pedestals in the street right away at every other property line, if you walk the sidewalk, you'll see a handhole about yay big that's flush with the ground. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get my community to adopt that, and my street now has pedestals where people want their service. The snowplow took out one of them this year.
Ellen?
I move we adopt the ordinance to amend section 15.32.050 of the municipal code.
Second it.
Moved by Ellen, seconded by Howard. Discussion? Jolene?
Yeah. I have an additional question. In that it says no poles or apparatus will be in public streets. And there, in the district where I'm in, there's at least one pole that is actually, right in the street. And I do wish, maybe this is not the place where we put this, but I'm so thankful that no one has ever hit it because there's no reflective or it's not spray painted bright. It literally it's brown, blends into the street. Is there anything that we are thinking about when there's existing poles? I realize we're not going to put future ones, but to make it so that it is a little bit more visible without being, I guess, an eyesore.
I think on a case-by-case basis there, we could approach the owner of the pole and just ask them out of respect for the community that if they would do something.
So in that case, contact your department and identify which one it is.
Yeah, somehow we have to track down. If there's still line power, meaning electric on it, it's likely owned by the electric utility. If there is no line power on it, then it still could be owned by the electric company, but more likely based upon what we're experiencing here, it's probably been sold to one of the communication companies, and which communication company is anyone's guess. So that's one of the policies, if not perhaps a future ordinance, is that one of the things I've drafted is that the owners of these utilities have to provide frequent identifications so that we can go out there at anywhere and figure out who owns what.
So a question for Lud then. If Alliant Energy sells one of these poles to any of the phone companies for the dollar, does that original easement get passed along, or does that break the easement?
That's exactly what we'd have to determine. So I'm not suggesting I know the answer to that we got to find the original easements. And some of these easements were prescriptive, meaning we allowed it to happen, and now they can assert the right to maintain the pole. So the intent of this ordinance is to get busy and see what we can learn. And I think Alan's on top of it to track it down and see whether they violated the easement. And if such, we're going to take the pole down with the assistance of the original placement of that pole being the electric company in all probability. So cooperation is what we're looking for here.
Cooperation is what I'm hoping to gain from some companies. When I spoke to Brightspeed, once, I painted the picture of what's been going on in Ripon, and once their consulting engineering firm understood what was going on and where we desired to go going forth, that's when they put the brakes on, and then the following day, got a call from Brightspeed themselves, and so we started the dialogue, and on the surface, they're not adverse to it. That always remains to be seen as to whether they're going to play ball willfully, or are we going to have to force the issue. And in some cases, I'm using it as an opportunity to clean up areas in close proximity to where they're applying for permits.
Jolene?
On that note, if they're going to play nicely, I want to ask our attorney, is in D, the term immediate threat, the word immediate, does that cause any potential problems? You know, we talked about if a pole's leaning and they'll argue, well, it's not an immediate threat. Why don't we just say if it presents a threat to public safety? Is there anything there that we should consider?
Again, that's a concept of police power. You can't just say, we think that's a threat.
Okay.
We gotta say, something's going to happen if we don't act.
It's leaning 45
It's
degrees.
leaning, and that's enough for us to say, we made a determination. So immediate ties back to police power.
Okay.
You can't just say, well, it doesn't look good, or it doesn't feel right, or it might be a problem. It's an immediate danger.
Any further questions or discussion? Thank you, Alan. All right, all those in favor of approving ordinance to amend section 15.32.050, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Thank you very much. All right, project updates and staff report. Alan, do you have anything?
Just an update, I believe it's Liberty Street. I did, I guess, succumb to the appeals of one of the neighbors up there, and we have started to do some ditching work. It's going to be much more involved than what we've done so far. It's going to involve finding some product that's going to resist scouring as we revegetate, things like that. So you may hear from people wanting to know, I'm just forewarning you, we're probably going to do the bulk of it when we get into a drier period of time. Additionally, what we found out is that the communication, the buried communication wires were not buried deep enough. So literally, we exposed the top side of the orange conduits to get to the bottom of the ditch that was to be level with the bottom of the culvert. So I've already put an email out to one contact at Spectrum. I suspect that that's not the right person, so I'll be talking with our engineers at MSA to see who they have for contacts, because it's frequent that when you're doing infrastructure design work, you reach out to the designers at the various utilities. I just need to get to that person. They're gonna have to get in there and bury their stuff deeper.
And I assume this is west of Union Street that we're talking about.
Correct, towards the top of the hill there. So it's been a long time. From what I've gathered, talking with staff as well as the residents, I don't think the city has done any ditching effort there in a decade or two, or maybe even 3. So it's a product of the gravel and the sediment washing into the ditch and just not being dug out periodically, like what you see on any rural roadway. So other than that, working on the right-of-way stuff. Just submitted a list of asphalt patching. I'm trying to get that into our bidding documents with State Street. And then I am awaiting a revised proposal from Safe Step for sidewalks. The revision is just upping the do not exceed amount, because I want to get a little bit more. I'm trying to preserve a few dollars because this ditch project's going to get a little pricey, so I need a few bucks for that. So other than that, if anybody has any questions.
You know I will, right? No. I mean, it's spring cleanup time. Is there anything more you can say to folks watching about the recycling center? There is soil available, isn't it? Folks are planting out at the recycling center, or?
It's my understanding we have mulch. We may have compost. I don't know if we have soil,
Okay.
but that is available. And people, we're getting a lot of requests for the free annual dumpster day or whatever you want to call it, to get rid of their trailer load of stuff, so.
Which they get by contacting the department, right?
We have a link, we have a feature on the DPW website. They can email us, and then we will be in touch about getting that to them. I responded to 4 of them today, so.
I've seen some gutters, speaking of sediments and with the, now that it's spring, kind of being plugged a little bit, folks should.
If they could report to us, and then we'll respond and clear those out. Otherwise, we have done their first round of street sweeping, and I would imagine come the beginning of next month, we'll hit the streets again for sweeping, so.
And I've seen some potholes being filled and.
All day
probably
today.
Never do enough,
Yeah,
but
all
thank
day.
you to your department for that.
Thank you.
Amanda, you have,
I don't really have.
please? No? Naomi,
Yes.
anything for you?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor. The Associated Appraisal Consultants, which is our contracted assessors, they're going to be conducting the open book meetings by phone, email, or internet video conferencing. The preliminary assessment roll became available today. You can reach out to the assessor during regular business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. Their information is posted on our website. We also have it going to be in the newspaper. It's also posted on the bulletin board in front of City Hall. You can call anytime after receiving your assessment notice, but no later than 7 days prior to the Board of Review, which will be held on Tuesday, May 23rd, from 3 until 5.
All right. Adam?
So I want to call attention and recognize Eugene Risen. He will be retiring at the end of the week after 38 years with the Department of Public Works. So thank you, Eugene, for your many, many years of service to the city of Ripon, and happy retirement. With that too, we are accepting applications for the Public Works Department. So if you know of anybody interested in working for the city, we have posts out there as well. Bill is also hiring in the PD. He is in dire need of crossing guards as well as a police officer. So if you know of anybody interested in working for Bill and the police department, certainly reach out to him or just find the link and apply. So we are hiring a few positions. I put a note in your packet regarding the DNR stocking the mill pond with 1,000 catchable size yearling rainbow trout. So in about a week or so, they will stock that, and the free fishing day, I believe, or the fishing open is May 6th or something around that. Should be a good number of fish to try to catch in the mill pond. So not something that I think they think are going to become a stable or spawning reproductive fish in the pond, but certainly something for people to try to go catch. And then just want to congratulate again, the city was involved in the groundbreaking I was involved in the groundbreaking for the Ripon College Stadium. The mayor participated in the inauguration of the 14th president. And so last week ended with some very positive activities on the campus. So congratulations to Ripon College for breaking ground on the Science Center, the stadium, and the inauguration of Vicky Folds.
And on that note, a comment from President Foles that she gave to me was, other colleges attending were surprised at our level of communication between the city and the college that we've established over the last school year. That's definitely coming a long way, and we look forward to further cooperation between us and the college. That's about the only comment I had to add. Any future agenda items or comments from the council? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Moved by Doug, seconded by Jolene. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 8:04. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I discovered Intercom, we had a rental house in Grove Street. We had a very line back.